how good will Utah be? And I know that this has been controversial on the show, and I'm not trying to be that. I think we've talked about this a lot, that I think Utah doesn't get the respect they deserve. And we can sit here and Chaplain James can tell us how great Kyle Whittingham is and how much people respect him. But the bottom line is you really don't. Because how many people in this conference, are saying, oh, it's a flyover conference, bro, that Utah's going to win. Utah's going to win the Big 12. And we talked about this before, and I know every other fan base in this conference and K-State fans are justifiably feeling disrespected. Well, how can you say that now? FanDuel has you as the second best odds to win the conference, right? And you look at what's going on with Leipold to Kansas. You look at what's going on in Manhattan. You look at I think the real loser here are the new four. That Colorado is at plus 13,000 or what, if plus 4,000, and you have BYU and Houston at plus 13,000.
Oh no!
To win this conference is kind of ridiculous. But is it really that far off? It probably is not. I think BYU's got an incredibly steep climb. We talked to Jake Retzloff, the starting quarterback at BYU, every Thursday morning. I have a lot of high hopes for that team. BYU is that team that every year winds up winning games that they shouldn't win. Do I favor them to win the conference? Not close. Do I favor Utah to win the conference? I think I've been saying that since it was announced last year.
Mm-hmm.
This is the best football program, and I think it's arguably the best athletic program. Without Texas in the conference, I think Utah is the best athletic department in the conference. I can't even think of one that's a close second. And we can sit here and we can talk about, football. Hey, listen, I understand Utah back to the BCS days, the original BCS Buster, but do they have a national championship appearance? They don't. Do they have a college football playoff appearance? They don't. Can that all change this season? Yeah, I think it's absolutely going to change. I think Utah's going to an expanded 12-team college football playoff, and I don't think it's going to be really that tight. I think they are head and shoulders now with Cam Rising healthy, and I expect Cam to be a dominant performer. I expect him to be back to the quarterback that he was 2 years ago. Obviously, he did not play last year, but before the knee injury, I expect him to be a dominant performer like he was. I expect Brant Kuithe, who I think is the great unknown to most college football fans, and certainly just about every fan in the Big 12. You have no idea how capable Brant Kuithe is. He is a stud, and you don't even know it. I think Utah has a chance to catch lightning in a bottle with this team, with a bunch of veteran players, I dare say old college football players, that have something to prove. And I think if they can come out and prove that, if they can stay healthy, if Kyle Whittingham has a full complement of players. Now, obviously at Utah, you have a lot to replace on the back end of that defense. Cole Bishop on his own would be a tough replacement, but you have significant changes in that secondary. I think all that plays into this. But what does not change is year in and year out, Kyle Whittingham fields one of the best defenses in the entire country. Bar none, he has one of the best defenses in the country every single year. But the other part of this equation is, yeah, he usually has one of the most unstable, questionable quarterback rooms in the entire country for a powerhouse football program. And I don't think that's going to change this year. And I think Utah still wins the Big 12.
I would agree. I would absolutely agree, because I think the Big 12 doesn't have the quarterback play it needs to beat that defense. And I think that's where, you start to look at, that Utah game against Baylor last year is a great example of what I'm talking about, right? Like Utah doesn't have a quarterback in that game, and they still beat you. And yeah, it was last second and totally get it, drama. All right, cool, but they still beat you, right? So to me, if Cam's going to be healthy, and again, I'm just telling you, Utah fan, that's a big if. I'm not assuming anything with Cam Rising. He needs to show that knee, A, he trusts his knee, number one, but then B, that he's still the same guy he was before the knee.
I think Vaki and Bishop being gone in the back end of that defense at Utah is a bigger question than Cam Rising's knee. I think Cam will have had 18 months to heal that thing, and I think that is more than enough. I don't care how catastrophic your knee injury is, 18 months going to camp, I think you're going to be fine. Cam's a warrior. He's a hard worker. I have no doubt that he's done everything that he can do to put himself in the best position to succeed on the field. I put Utah at the top of this ranking really because I believe in Cam Rising.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in Brant Kuithe. I think he is a guy that is absolutely a game changer. But Jonah Ellis was absolutely a game wrecker on that Utah defensive line. I think Sione Vaki and Cole Bishop were two of the best safeties in the country nobody ever talked about. So I think you have significant replacements to make on that defense. Witt's going to do it. He does it every single year.
Yeah.
And if your job and you're making your money on questioning Kyle Whittingham and Morgan Scalley's defense, I think you're probably going to be in a losing situation.
Totally agree.
So
Totally agree.
I look at teams like K-State. I think K-State's got everything you want to look at. I think Matt Wells as a coordinator is one of the best coordinators in the country that nobody talks about. Now, obviously, Connor Riley's still there, but K-State's going to have an excellent coaching staff. Their players are going to be prepared and ready to go. But you also got to find out what do you have at quarterback? Like, I mean, you look at the loss of Will Howard to Ohio State, and that is not insignificant. And that's not it. I think when you look at their defense, you got to plug some holes on that defense. But I think K-State will do that. My biggest question is, I just don't know why Alan Bowman excites Oklahoma State fans, because he does not excite me.
Yeah, I think that Oklahoma State fans get excited about Bowman because that's just who they have. That's their, he's a big body quarterback who sits in the pocket and runs when you need him to. And I think for Oklahoma State fan, like, Bowman, that's why you're excited about him. I think, Oklahoma State fans probably excited about the fact that they're not going to have quarterback controversy this year. And we're not going to have to talk about, Gunner, and we're not going to have to talk about these different dudes trying to play quarterback for your team. And we're not going to have to talk about walkouts this year. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm with you. Like, obviously these preseason odds are not, indicative of true power rankings in the Big 12. But I think that the idea that a program like Oklahoma State is even listed in the middle of the pack is surprising to me when you think about what they were able to pull out of their, behind last year, frankly.
The team that stands out to me on this list is not Oklahoma State. It's Iowa State. That Iowa State is 4 digits is, I think, a little disrespectful. I think Iowa State continues to be that team that, again, much like Utah, nobody knows who they are. And I think with Rocco Becht back, Sama's back, you look at some of the talent that's there. And if Matt Campbell's your head coach, you could be in a hell of a lot worse situation. And I look at some of the numbers last year, and again, Sama's back. I think Jaden Higgins coming back is a big deal. But I also think that this is one of the best defenses in the country. I think this will be the number 2 defense in the conference. Remember, this is a team that only gives up 5 yards per play on defense. Iowa State gave up 5 yards per play on defense. I think they are fantastic defensively, and I think Matt Campbell's going to have them back. But again, I also look down in Lubbock. I think this is a massive, massive year for Joey McGuire and the boys in Lubbock. I mean, if you have any bit of a bobble or a stumble, I don't know how you're not making a coaching change. What are you, Baylor? You're just going to hang on to a guy who can't win? That's going to be the conversation after this season.
100%.
If this team is not a double-digit win team, it's not going to be, there's no more excuses at the quarterback. You've got your guy. You've got to keep him healthy. Schematically, you got to be solid and sound. Right. And I think when you look at the teams that could surprise, and you look at some of the numbers that are coming to bear, Taj Brooks, pound for pound, I think is the best running back in the conference.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know Okie Light's going to be pissed about that. Ollie Gordon for Heisman, Monty. Okay. I'm going to ride with Taj Brooks. I'm going to take Taj Brooks. I think as a guy that put up 10 touchdowns and 1,500 yards on a very dilapidated, depleted, not very well-run offense in Lubbock, Taj Brooks showed you he is special. And you would hope that with Baron Morton being experienced now and ready to go, and not much that he's going to see to surprise him this year, with an elite running back, I would think that this offense is going to be significantly better. I think they're going to be their play calling on defense really tweaked me last year.
Yeah.
You lost
dumbass decisions, dude.
You lost games on defensive play calling last year. You've got to be better. The coaches, it's not even the players. The coaches in Lubbock have to do a better job.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the issue in Lubbock is clearly play calling, and I think that guys like Taj Brooks show you that. Like, you give, like, just the same way that Taj Brooks was reliable and a workhorse back for you, and you fed him all year, is just the same way as your defense looked bad because you were putting them in the wrong scheme at the wrong time in the wrong part of the field.
Yep.
And that's why I'm saying, like, so their performance last year shows you, hey, like, yeah, we know how to run the football, and we understand that running the football is the basis of our offense, but we don't know how to play situational football. And that's the best way I can say it about Texas Tech. And I do think that's on offense as well. There were a lot of times last year on both sides of the football where I'm like, dude, why are you running the football or throwing right here? This is clearly, you should be going left and you went right. What are we thinking? And to that end, that's why they struggled last year. And that's why I think last year was such a grind. And I wonder, is that a Joey thing? Is that just simply a coordinator being an idiot coordinator thing? Like, that's the type of questions I think Joey's got to answer this year. Because it's not, hey, do you have the talent to compete in the conference? You absolutely have the talent to compete in the conference. It's more about, are you going to be able to put your talent in the right positions? And
I also look at what Sonny Dykes did in Fort Worth. Andy Avalos is a really nice hire. And I think if Andy can bring that TCU's problems last year, their defense was horrendous. If TCU's defense is even marginally better, 20% better, because I just think you want to talk about a defense that just wasn't well coordinated, that was rarely on the same page. That was TCU.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you were going to backslide. I think in our preseason projections on this show, TCU was very clearly that team that we thought was going to backslide through the season. And
my
how.
God, did they?
And how. But I think Josh Hoover, with a full year under his belt and being the guy all off season, much like Jake Retzloff at BYU, I think Josh Hoover's a guy that you should be excited about. And I think Andy Avalos coordinating that defense, I think is exciting. But I look at UCF, I think KJ Jefferson to UCF is absolutely thrilling.
That's an exciting one.
I would agree.
There were a lot of games last year where UCF was a quarterback away from winning a ton of ball games, and KJ Jefferson is a big arm quarterback, big body quarterback, dual threat. Like, he is an upgrade, no question about it. And I'm not saying that UCF is going to compete to win this conference, but what I am saying is that UCF is going to be that team that can beat you on any given week. And I think that's what makes them dangerous. Like, UCF is the team where they're playing Utah and they're pushing Utah a little bit. Like, they make it a little uncomfortable. That's what I think you can expect from them.
I also think Kobe Hudson coming back is a big deal. So I would look at them, and I don't know what to make of Colorado. I think Colorado's a mid-pack, Big 12 team right now, but I think you also show that you're going to score with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like these rankings are not that far off. That's what I would say. I think that the biggest question is, what will Iowa State have to do to get the respect they deserve?
There's probably not a lot they can do in the preseason. There's not a lot because again, Iowa State, again, is a great football program. It is. But I think the problem is that because it's Iowa State, they're not going to get that preseason love that they probably deserve. And I think, when you look around the conference, there's a lot of teams like that. I do think Deion and Colorado are a huge X factor. They could very easily have the same season they had last year, or it could very easily be a 8-9 win team that competes for the conference and has a great year and a big step forward.
Cannot give up 35 points.
Yeah, and so that's the question, right? I mean, obviously, you did some nice things in the portal. You rolled over a lot of your talent. You upgraded a lot of things.
Oh, I think they dominated the defensive and offensive line in the portal. I mean, at Colorado, their offensive line, if Shedeur Sanders is sacked 2 times or less per game, I think they're in contention to play on and in some really important games late in the season. If they can protect Shedeur Sanders, because Travis Hunter is also a guy, I think people forget that he is a true two-way player.
Yeah.
He is offense and defense. Travis Hunter's a dominant force. And when Shedeur was under so much pressure, I mean, there's all kinds of tape on Deion's and if you're not watching Coach Prime on Amazon, I don't know what you're doing. It's a great show. There's all kinds of tape of how open Travis Hunter was repeatedly, and Shedeur just didn't have the time. Did not have the time. So I think if this portal turnover again, it's not as big as year one, but they turned over a lot of bros in the portal. It's tough to build that kind of chemistry and develop a unit. But I think their offensive and defensive lines are going to be better.
Yeah.
They can't give up 35 points a game, and Shedeur can't be running for his life the entire game.
I also think that it needs to be said that they can't be that team that gets blown up in the second half by Stanford, bro. Like, you can't be that team that just gets taken to the woodshed by mediocre ass football teams. And I think that's the thing. That's all I'm looking for out of Deion in year two. I'm not saying Deion's going to go out and win the conference. Not saying that he's in the college football playoff conversation. I'm not saying any of that. But what I am saying is that this year I would expect the performance on the field to take a step forward. I would expect them to control the game more. I would expect them not to make a bunch of those silly mistakes again. Like, that's a type of stuff I think in year two that Deion's got to clean up. Because to your point, it's not like the assertion. A lot of people want to say, oh, well, it's year two, like chemistry. And this is, they should be better. And it's like, well, yeah, they should be better, but not because they have chemistry.
Should be.
They should be better because he's got more talent there that you can expect to perform at a higher level. But they're still going to have to build chemistry. And that offensive line is where it all starts, right? I mean, obviously, like you said, they did well in the portal on both sides of the football on the lines. But now those lines need to start playing like a unit. And the only way you build that chemistry is by playing games together. So if and I haven't looked at their schedule yet, but if in the first 5 games you can just be, 3-2, if somehow you could be 4-1, that'd be great. That'd be a nice start to the year.
I'm very interested also. One other team, and I know this is not popular. How is one of the worst universities in the classroom, Arizona State?
Mm-hmm.
How's Arizona State football going to look with Kenny? Because Jaden Rashada, for all the controversy and everything a lot of people went through to get him, kid can actually play a little bit. And Kenny Dillingham, I know nobody's paying attention.
I knew today would be shitty.
Kenny had a pretty good portal window too. And he's going to have a pretty good portal window in the spring too.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I don't know. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how all of that plays out. But I think that Iowa State is truly the disrespected here. They are the unsullied. They are the ones that I think you have to really wonder, why is Iowa State not getting the respect that they deserve? Because I actually think that that's an 8-9 win team potentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's not popular. I think with this betting scandal bullshit behind them now in Ames, I think they can really focus again. And I think that they are going to – that Iowa game, I think the West Virginia game, I think those are all going to be critical games for them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of must-win games if they are going to – if Iowa State's going to wrangle that respect away. Like, just looking at their schedule, Iowa State, North Dakota at Iowa. That Iowa game's huge. You have to go to Iowa City and win. Arkansas State at Houston, Baylor, and then at West Virginia, October 12th, must-win game. UCF, Texas Tech, those are in Iowa City. You're going to win those games. At Kansas, you're going to Lawrence in November. It's a game you should win. And then coming to Salt Lake City on
you're not winning
Thanksgiving week. We're going to find out who you are.
Yeah, I highly doubt you win that game.
We'll see.
Altitude.
I think it's a very interesting question.
Yeah.
I think it's a really interesting question.
Well, I think that portion about Utah is what the Big 12 is totally underestimating, in my opinion. I don't think that Big 12 teams quite understand what it's like to play a 40-degree game at, damn near 5,000 feet above sea level. And hell, if it's at night, you're in an even worse position.
And I think Utah doesn't have the easy outs they've had previously. Like, you're going to play SUU, Southern Utah, to end August, but then it's Baylor, Utah State, and Oklahoma State on the road, Arizona at Arizona State. And I think if you haven't been to, and I'm calling it Sun Devil Stadium because that's what it is. If you have never been to Sun Devil Stadium, it's a dumpster. Like, it's not a nice stadium. It is smack dab in the middle of the desert, and it's all concrete. It sucks, dude. And they just renovated it, and it sucks.
Yeah, it's brutal.
That is going to be a very interesting place to go play games, because you're going to play a lot of night games. That game's October 11th. It's going to be hot in
October
Tempe.
11th is 80s, 90s.
TCU at Houston, BYU at Colorado, Iowa State at UCF.
See, that's what I'm talking about. You play BYU in the Holy War, then you get Colorado that next week. And Colorado is going to be looking for
It's a good rivalry game. Yeah. Utah and Colorado back in the same conference. Very good for the conference.
Yeah.
And again, I think Kyle Whittingham, nobody knows who Kyle Whittingham is. Nobody cares who Brant Keithy is. Nobody wants to talk about Cam Rising. Nobody wants to talk about how good the athletic department at Utah is. We'll just sit here and they'll win the games you think they can't win. And you'll be disappointed in your team when they lose to Utah. You shouldn't be, because Utah's probably better than your team. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Utah football is probably better than your team.
I get it.
You don't have to like it, All right, let's see. Where are you guys at? OG Gary, his favorite team is Utah and LSU. And anyway, I'm a little nervous with how much everyone is gassing Utah up. I really hope they're ignoring all the gas. We also need to plug some holes on D. Hopefully spring transfer portal can help Utah there.
Is it possible that they could ride the D?
You have a lot of I would be concerned about Vaki and Bishop were playmakers. Cole Bishop is a hell of a football player. I just continue to say he's a hell of a football player. And I think you've got some turnover on the offensive line to deal with. The line was much maligned last year.
Yeah.
This defense is going to be fine. Kyle Whittingham and Morgan Scalley, it's a dynamic duo defense in this country. They are always fine because they're very good position by position coaches. They'll be fine. Mike Smith, Cam's ability and leadership is all for naught if he cannot stay healthy and be on the field.
Facts.
Absolutely true.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we shouldn't just assume. Okay.
Cam Rising is as good as Brandon Whedon was in 2011.
Okay. Bro, did you just pull out Brandon Whedon?
I'm going to have to go back and check Brandon Whedon's numbers.
Dude.
Where do you come up? Like,
Because it's garbage.
Do you wake up and promise yourself, I'm working in Brandon Whedon today on the show? I mean, I'm curious.
Dude.
What did my guy Brandon do?
Brandon.
Let's look at his statistics.
This is your beloved.
You pulled out Brandon Whedon. Nobody pulls out on Brandon Whedon. Stop it. In his senior season, 2011,
hey, Monty.
He led Oak State to an 11-1 regular season and number 3 ranking in the BCS standings. What do you guys think happened that year? And a berth in the 2012 BCS Tostitos Fiesta Bowl. He also broke school records in the 2012 Fiesta Bowl, the last game of his college career. Oklahoma State beat Stanford 41-38. And James had raunchy sex at truck stops all the way back to Stillwater. Probably too much. I'm just getting okay.
Brandon Whedon.
He did have a good season. Brandon Whedon.
What's the rest of his comments say? Because we got to make sure we read the whole comment.
Oh, my bad. I'm just looking at the statistics.
Yeah.
As long as Rising is healthy, Utah is the favorite. as anointed by James, the Brandon Whedon fan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a wild poll. Like Brandon Whedon.
Yeah, I haven't heard Brandon Whedon in a while.
That's pretty. Birds with shoes, blasphemy, infidels.
Okay.
Let's just. Okay. All right. Norman is dead to us, Boylake says. Okay. James clarifies, Mike, I would like to put Okie Light as a name of a beer. It would sell well in Oklahoma.
So you do like the terminology Okie Light.
Okay. It's fine. James also says, I still believe Morton at Texas Tech is really good too, but he's no Brandon Whedon, but he'll do.
That's right.
Mike Smith, as the tuna Bill Parcells would say, when the team is getting good press, don't eat the cheese.
Okay.
I agree. Noel Ramirez. Hello, Noel. Good to see you. I changed my mind. I hope anyone but Utah wins the Big 12.
Okay. Well, thanks for telling us how you really feel.
He's a never Uter.
A never Uter.
Sounded good. Gary, I really hope Cam relies on his arm more than his legs this year. No choice. Has to do it. Utah plays defense every year. Well, of course you do. I mean, you've got 22 men that make up a football team, and they stand with each other. They stand arm in arm.
Yeah.
And they go to war with each other. They battle for the man next to them. Okay. Steve Walgamot Jr., hit the like button. Yes, please hit the like button.
What are we at today?
Always appreciated when you guys can hit the like button.
Yeah.
We are come on, man. We've had 500 and something views and we're at 33 likes.
My bad.
Come on, man.
Come on.
Hit the like button, dadgummit. Bo Body for $10. What makes Utah scary is not only Cam and Grant, but let's talk about all their transfers they got from Georgia Tech, Michigan. I think, and this is something that we've talked about on the show previously, Kyle Whittingham has evolved in his belief in the portal and in recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you have any choice. I think when you look at the way that, and I'm trying to be gentle, the older generation of coaches, Nick Saban, have
in
set
God's name, image, and likeness.
Yeah, Captain NIL over there in Clemson.
We built this program on NIL.
Dabo. I look at the way that those guys use and don't use the portal, and it is striking.
Well, and you see the results. I mean, obviously, Dabo hasn't embraced things, and you see them struggling.
Yeah, I think that you have to do that. You have no choice. You have to embrace it. And I think when you look at, if you look at, Dorian Singer, everybody's excited about Dorian Singer. I'm not a huge believer in Dorian Singer. You don't bounce around a conference and team to team the way Dorian has if you're, that guy. But at the safety Gilman from Stanford's a really nice get. I think, Tayshaun Lyons, we'll see what he can bring. But if you look at some of the guys, I don't know that you necessarily had I don't know that you had some huge haul.
Yeah.
In the portal, but you definitely got better. I mean, Keenan Johnson, the corner that you're talking about from Georgia Tech, he's an 89 in the portal, and he transferred to Utah. Obviously, I think Carson Ryan, the tight end, is going to be important because you're going to need depth at the tight end spot. That's a great pickup, but I also think that I just think you have to wait and see how all this, falls out in spring ball.
Yeah.
And until we get a real idea of what this team looks like after spring ball and when the spring portal hits, that's when I think we're going to see how well they did in the portal.
Yes.
But hey, you know what? I hope you're right. I hope you're right. And if the guys that Witt brought in the portal, and I think this is one of his better hauls in the portal, he definitely brought in depth. I think there's no doubt about that. How about Mountain Mama, a member of the show for 7 months?
Let's go, baby.
Mike, appreciate you. Thanks for being here as we talk about Fanduel and their Fanduel and their Big 12 rankings. OG Gary, Iowa State's going to be sneaky good. TCU, but it is, and I'll read the rest of your comment. Is Iowa State sneaky good?
I mean,
They gave up 5 yards per play last year.
but nobody, I'm not going to say nobody cares, but no one's talking about it because it's Iowa State. That's what I'm saying. You're not going to give the preseason love that another program typically would because you are in the state of Iowa and nobody talks about the state of Iowa.
TCU is going to be sneaky good. Oak State is Oak State. Don't you mean Okie Light?
Yeah. What's Oak State?
They're always a tough match, and Tech is going to be good this year. It's going to be amazing this year in the 12. I think the Big 12 is going to have an incredible season. I think this might be the tipping point of where football and basketball really build a much stronger foundation with what's going on in the Big 10 and the SEC and the college football playoff. You better make it inarguable that you've got 3-4 teams that qualify for the college football playoff.
Facts.
That's the only way that you're going to survive this.
Mm-hmm. You
have to put teams in the college football playoff. You're already the dominant force in college basketball. Now you got to put 3-4 if you have 4 teams in the college football playoff,
you're in a great spot.
If 4 of those 12 go to the Big 12, you're in a great spot because you're going to probably get 3 in from the Big 10 at a minimum. I think you're going to get 3 in, 4 in. You're probably getting 4 in, right?
Yes.
That's 7 spots that are gone. 8 when you count the G5. You better dominate those remaining spots because if you get 5-6 SEC teams or Big 10 teams, you're fucked. Excuse my French, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Because it's only going to make their case stronger. So I think it's a really pivotal year. I truly do.
And Gary, as a fan of all these different teams, like how do you prioritize your fandom? Obviously
that's a real question.
With Gary being a Tech fan, it's real tough, when you think about, Tech trying to contend for the conference and then you look over at LSU and, how do you order your fandom, bro? How does that work for you?
It's got to be tough to juggle all them balls.
Yeah.
Steve Walgamont Jr., smash the like button, gang. It's free. It helps out our friends, the Monty Show.
Hey, Monty.
Hit the like button. Steve Sapanic, good morning to you. We need the teams that join the Big 12 do well no matter who they are. And BYU is a perfect example of this. Like BYU, I think there is a quarterback competition. I think Jake Retzloff is going to win that competition.
Mm-hmm.
I think you look at BYU, they definitely got deeper. They definitely got better. But does that translate to beating Utah? Let's find out. It's a game of consequence now, right? Colorado, Utah is a game of consequence now. BYU, I think the last projection I saw, BYU is supposed to win 4 games this year.
Man.
I think they're going to –
rough.
If they win 4 games, I fear for Kalani Sitake. Because I don't know how you win 4 games. They're going to beat Southern Illinois, right? I would think in Dallas, they're going to beat SMU. Wyoming's very difficult. That's a very difficult game. I don't know how you go to Wyoming and win. It's a very tough thing to do. K-State, at Baylor, Arizona, Oak State, at UCF, at Utah. This is the stretch that just is very difficult. Oak State, at UCF, at Utah, Kansas, at Arizona State, and you finish with Houston at home. I'm going to give you the win over Houston.
Yep.
I'm going to give you the win over Arizona. And I think you're going to beat Southern Illinois and Wyoming.
Baylor.
That's 4. I don't know about Baylor. Baylor is it. The inarguable fact is going to Waco is not the easiest place to go win a game. And the good news is it's in September. So it's going to be warm. Your athletes will perform. The bad news is it's in September and it's going to be warm. And I'm very curious to see how because Baylor competes. It's not that Baylor doesn't compete. I just think they're poorly coached.
Yes.
Baylor competes. If you are a legitimate top half Big 12 team, you go to Waco and win this year. You do. You go to Waco and win. Will they? I don't know. But what road game are they more likely to win? Are they going to go to Dallas and beat SMU?
Yes.
Are they going to go to Laramie and beat Wyoming?
No.
Are you going to go to Waco and beat Baylor?
I think so.
So if you're beating Southern Illinois and you're beating SMU, you're losing in Laramie.
Yep.
Are you beating K-State and Provo? Probably not. I don't think so.
Okay, call it a loss, but I do think that that's a winnable game for them.
At Baylor,
That's a win.
3. Arizona's a win, 4. Home for Oak State.
Loss.
At UCF, that's a loss.
Yeah, it feels like a loss.
At Utah.
Have to say it's a loss, but you never know.
Kansas in Provo.
I think that's a winnable game.
5. At Arizona State.
That's a win.
6. Home for Houston.
Should be a win.
7.
Yeah, should be a win.
I think that's the absolute max for BYU.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be tough.
I also think we don't know what to fully, like the full top end of Retzloff yet. I think that there's a lot of credence in what he talked about last week about how, hey, like we're getting a full off season together. We're building that chemistry.
And what has he said? We're not going through surgery.
Yeah.
He's not going to have hangover effects from surgery and complications. He's getting a full off season. He's getting full spring ball. He is getting development. Like he has a command of the playbook. Like he has chemistry. He has everything that you want. He will have to be dreadful to be unseated as the starting quarterback at BYU. He'd have to be dreadful.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see, he's too talented for that.
Yeah. And I think he's too much of a go-getter for that.
Yeah. You can say anything you want about Jake Retzloff. When you watch him on this show, he is prepared. He is tenacious. He is intense. He is eager. He is ready. He knows that. And if you watched BYU last year, as I did, he got better every single snap at the end of the year. You could see the progression without an off season, without being the number one, without being prepared like that. It's going to be interesting. If Jake Retzloff does not win this job, they do not win 7 games.
Agreed.
It's that simple. If he does not win if Jake Retzloff is not the starting quarterback at BYU, I think Kalani Sitake is in for a very bumpy ride this season. And I don't know even almost how you would spin it any other way.
I do think Jake will win it, though. He'll win that.
I believe he will.
Yeah.
I think he is, from what I understand, he is the default guy. He is the guy that they want to win the job. Now they're not going to say he's your starting. You brought in a pretty significant transfer in Bohannon. Jake Retzloff's a better quarterback. Jake Retzloff's top end. I think if Jake Retzloff plays the best football he's able to play the next 2 years, he's a Heisman Trophy contender.
Yeah, that's real. He has that kind of talent.
I have no doubt.
Yeah.
Will you get there? That's the biggest question. The internals on him are phenomenal.
He's going to need
wants
Cody
it.
Epps, dude. He's going to need his allotment of receivers.
He needs guys to be healthy. He needs a legitimate, solid 5 guys up front. Because remember, you have massive turnover on the offensive line.
Yes.
You're losing guys like Kingsley Suamataia is not somebody you just up and replace.
Mm-hmm.
That guy's a condo complex. He is massive.
Yes.
And he is talented. And I think that's going to be the question. They're deep there. They're deep at wide receiver. He's got to go and do the job now. And if that's what's going to determine who's the starting quarterback at BYU, well, I don't know. Is Jake Retzloff going to perform? Okay, Jake is the starting quarterback because he's going to perform.
Yeah.
I have no doubt about it. Boyd Lake, until BYU gets a QB1, they shouldn't be higher on the list. They shouldn't be. Yeah, Bohannon's there. K-State will always be a contender as long as Chris Kleiman is there. He's a very good head coach. He gets good players from the Dakotas and the other coaches ignore. I don't disagree with that. Bohannon will not beat out BYU Jake. He will not. He will not.
Go buy Buddy's merch, man. He's got some really good merch.
Find Jake Retzloff on Instagram. There's a link in his Instagram bio to his merch. Support Jake Retzloff. He's on the show every Thursday. Thanks to our friends at Big O Tire and American Fork. Couldn't do it without those guys. And I think this is and I wouldn't dare pretend to tell Jake Retzloff this is a make or break year for that kid. Like if he's not the guy now, when's he going to be the guy?
Yeah, he's not.
Because they're setting up everything for him. He showed last year he can compete. I think that this is a make or break year for him.
I also think the conversation around coordinators at BYU is real this year too, right? Like I think that you, just the same way we talked about Texas Tech, like I think now heading into this year with the consistency at quarterback, you have to have good play calling, right? Because ultimately, if you put guys like Jake Retzloff and Cody Epps in the proper position based on down and distance, you're gonna have success. Those guys are talented. They can beat the defense. They absolutely can beat the defense. But if you're not gonna do that, and there are just times where they, on both sides of the ball. It's not unique to any one guy, but there are just times where the play calling is not good. And it just needs to find some more consistency. I want them taking more shots. I want them working down the field more, as opposed to throwing all this backfield screen underneath stuff. And it's frustrating to watch Roderick do this sometimes, where it's like, hey man, like it's 3rd and 5 and you want to throw a screen, whereas it's 3rd and 5 and we're running a 7-yard in. That's what you should be running. So, I don't know. I just want the play calling to put guys like Jake in a really good position to be successful.
I think there is no doubt in my mind that when I look at the way that this staff has been built, there's no doubt in my mind that BYU is going in the right direction. I have no doubt about it. But let's not pull any punches. You can't win 4 games.
No.
You can't look apathetic in your performances. You just can't. And I say it every single time we talk about BYU, and we talked about it, I feel like, unfortunately, we talked about it every week on this show last year. There were just times where they didn't look like they were ready to compete.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you had a very interesting quarterback situation in Keaton Slovis last year. I think you had a very interesting quarterback situation. I mean, really, since Zach went to the NFL, I mean, Jaron was hurt a lot. And for everything Jaron was special when he played.
I think the problem is, not the problem, just what's happened is Zach was a big play guy, right? Zach Wilson at BYU was highlight reel creator, right? Like bombs down the field, big plays, and obviously the COVID year was the COVID year, but I think, I think that the problem for BYU, or the situation for BYU, is they need to get back to that prowess at quarterback. They need to get, and that's why I'm excited.
Isn't that what Cade Fennegan was supposed to be at BYU?
Well, he's supposed to be, but he never got a chance.
And didn't we talk about this? And we've talked about this guy after guy after guy. Jake Retzloff is the guy.
Agreed. That's why I'm excited about him, because he's got that tenacity.
This is the dude.
He wants it.
I think you don't have to listen to the show very long to know my affinity for Kalani Sitake. I think he is the only guy that should be the head football coach at BYU. But I think at some point you've got to start winning 6, 7, 8 games.
Yeah.
The minimum standard is, well, we got to go to a bowl game. Like, my frustration with Aaron Roderick is, why didn't LJ Martin consistently get the football last year?
Great example.
Run the ball.
Yeah. Great
right.
example.
Like, if we're going to struggle offensively,
it's Texas Tech, right? What'd they do? Hey, ride your workhorse, dude. And
yes.
And I think that's what I'm saying. I wasn't rolling up to the show today to criticize Roderick, but my point is that, hey, know your strengths on offense. It's not
criticize, it's questioning.
Yeah, like,
and there's nothing wrong with that.
I don't want it to come off like I'm trying to come after, dude, but I do think there's questions. Like, yeah, why did you not hand it off to LJ Moore? The guy is a physical running back that wants to run through linebackers. Give it to him.
Listen, little old Monty over here, we're just talk show hosts, man.
Like, you would think, and again, I know this is just basic football. I'm not an OC for a reason. Okay, great. But you would think, if you had questions at quarterback, if you were working through a process where last year you were still trying to establish a guy, that would inherently mean that as a team, you need to run the football better. That would inherently mean that you want to get to 2nd and 5 as most often as possible.
Yep.
And that just wasn't the philosophy.
And I think when we look at this BYU offense again, I just look at guys like Cody Epps and Darius Lassiter, who I think, if I got one thing right on BYU last year, was Darius Lassiter.
Yes, he did.
I think Chase Roberts, I think, what do you do without Isaac Rex? That guy had been a leader. That guy had been somebody, well, in a lot of injuries, that guy is somebody who on the field last year was good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about Jackson Bowers. I want to know. I want to believe. I need to see it.
Well, and I think the tight end position, it's really interesting. Like, obviously in the NFL, the tight end position is prolific now, right? The NFL has turned into, hey, you got to have a back, you got to have a tight end, and you got to have one wide receiver to really be a quality offense. But at the college level, you don't see, like, obviously, the Brock Bowers of the world exist, but I don't really feel like you see this plethora of tight ends that are dominating. They're here and there. Some teams have them, most teams don't. And again, for BYU, coming into the Big 12 in year 2, I'm telling you, you have to have a better balance on offense. Too many times last year, the defense knew you were going to play underneath, and they came for you. And that's why you struggled. But again, if you can stay committed to running the football, and I swear to God, we say this every year, before Jake Retzloff was here and well after he'll be gone, they need to be committed to running the football. Because if you do that, good things happen for you 15 yards down the field running across the middle. And if that's available, Jake will tear defenses apart. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah, I think Jerry Bohannon was an interesting pickup. I always think you need depth at quarterback in this league. I think you could get away with that when you were playing a independent schedule salted with Pac-12 teams. I think you could get away with one quarterback. But I think when you look at Jake Retzloff, that's your dude. And what do you have, 71 quarterbacks on your roster this year, I think, right? But if I look at guys like LJ Martin, if I look at guys like Miles Davis is a junior now, right? I look at Cody Epps. Cody Epps is a junior now.
But think about like these names right here. If BYU gets the absolute most out of these guys this season, then 7 wins feels pretty attainable, right? Like, not that we should expect 7 out of them, but it feels like, yeah, if they play their best football, they can get 7 wins out of this season. But again, it's those games where you're like, hey, dude, you're going to SMU. We going to run the football? We going to control this game on the ground and then pop off for a couple big ones to win this game? Or how, what's the strategy? And that's the way I watch BYU football. I don't sit here and say, hey, like, dude, like, they should just beat this team. I turn on the tube and I'm like, hey, first 3 offensive possessions they get, what's the philosophy? And if it's not running the football, they're going to have trouble.
Isn't and this is probably a leap too far forward, but isn't this why Jackson Bowers is so critical? This is a kid that could have gone pretty much to any school he wanted to, was a dominant football player in Mesa, Arizona, and he chose BYU.
Yeah.
And again, the quarterback questions I think have been answered. Like there's no question that Jake Retzloff is the dude. You need a tight end. This offense is predicated on that, in my opinion. But if you can't develop him, ask yourself this: if you're BYU and you already struggle to recruit the best talent in the country,
right?
That's just the dynamic, the circumstances at BYU. I get it. But I also look at a situation where you get a guy like Jackson Bowers, bro, you can't miss with him. He's got to be, if I were BYU and you got a guy that's 6'5", 250.
Got to have it.
I would be pumping that dude the football. I would be trying to work him in and get him rolling into this offense because you need that relationship. And I'm curious to see how long it takes them to build him into that offense. And listen, man,
hopefully that happens in spring ball, man.
I fully buy into this idea that guys like Waylon Lapuapu has to stay healthy all year. Obviously, I think we are all aware that Connor Pay has to have a great season in the middle. He has got to be a dynamic leader, and he's got to play every single snap. The offensive line, it goes without saying. The defensive line, I think it goes without saying. But I also look at these linebackers, and I say to myself, can Ben Bywater stay healthy for an entire season? Is he physically capable of playing Big 12 football? The talent's not the question. Note my question. Is Ben Bywater physically capable of playing Big 12 football? We need to find that out because the kid's a dynamic performer, right? And I look at the rest of course we have a Kafusi on the roster at BYU,
course.
right? But I think you look at the talents here now. The defense is going to be better. I need Aaron Roderick to do his job. I need him to develop Jake. I need him to drive Bowers. I need Cody Epps to be healthy.
Facts.
It's huge. All right. Enough of us, more of you.
Yeah.
All of our BYU football talk on the show is presented by our friends at Big O Tires and American Fork. Big O Tires, your total car care experts. Don't forget at Big O Tires, guys, that it's not just, wheels and tires, bro.
Hey, Monty.
They absolutely are your go-to spot for tires. You need
Yeah.
tires, you need wheels, you need alignments.
Lifts.
Suspension, absolutely Big O Tires. Oil changes, tune-ups, lift kits, tint. They've tinted my windows. I'm telling you, cross climate twos. I drove through hellacious snow again this weekend. Never a doubt.
And by the way, if you're in a pinch, we all know that feeling in life. Hey, I got to get something done today. They can help you because they've got 35% more stock in store.
That's right.